So those four rules or methods, and one of them is an approach. So they are not the only methods that are used by the courts, right, in order to interpret or construct the law. There are three other things, such as aids, canons, and presumptions. Let's talk about aids first.
Yep. So aids are things that we can use to help in the way that we interpret things. Something may be given a particular meaning. Intrinsic aids, this is in the context of legislation, but another good example I would say is in a contract. If you have a well-drafted contract, you will be told the meaning immediately of specific words. You have a definitions and interpretation section. That is an intrinsic aid to the way that you interpret the contract. Sometimes we have the same thing, or often, in fact, in legislation, we're told what a specific word means. That is an intrinsic aid. Sometimes titles, headings, notes as well, we might see. We may also have a preamble, which has some details of why the legislation exists. And sometimes as well, we actually have explanatory notes that directly will explain, again, the purpose of the legislation or what we're trying to do and what certain words in that legislation mean. Extrinsic aids are things outside of the legislation that we're looking at for interpretation. The first one on here, the Interpretation Act, again, tells us a lot of important things about masculine, including feminine. We tend to use masculine in things like contracts or legislation. You'll see his or man. Obviously, it doesn't impliedly exclude all women from being included in that as well, or anyone else.
What about other aids in this box?
As we see as well, Hansard is very helpful, especially if we're taking a purposive approach.
If you could explain what it means, because I believe some people might not really understand.
Yeah, so Hansard is the record of what is said in Parliament. So if there's a parliamentary discussion when a law is being made, they may well be discussing why the law is being made, what their intention is in making that law. So if we want to take a purposive approach to the way we interpret that law, we can look at Hansard and see what was the purpose of that legislation. Committees as well. The Law Commission will make committees for examining pieces of legislation. They may make recommendations for the future. For example, the Coroners and Justice Act in 2009 was effectively the reform of certain laws on partial defences to murder. And the Law Commission had made a report basically saying that this was in need of reform. These are our suggestions. These are the issues. That would be a good extrinsic aid to understand why it was necessary to have the current law that we have and what, again, we're trying to avoid, what problems we're trying to solve through that legislation.